So Ahsoka Season 2, early 2027. Let that sink in for a second. The first season of Ahsoka ended in October 2023, and we are now looking at a gap of nearly 4 years before Season 2 lands on Disney+. 4 years, for a show that already exists. A show that finished filming in late 2025. A show whose star Rosario Dawson stood on a stage at Disney's upfront presentation just days ago and told the world, yes, it is coming, and no, you cannot have it yet. That is either the most confident move in streaming history or the most baffling, maybe both. Today, we are going to break down everything. Why the delay happened, what is actually going on inside Lucasfilm right now, and what Season 2 is shaping up to look like when it finally arrives. Because there is a lot more to this story than just Disney took forever. This is about strategy, tragedy, a franchise identity crisis, and one man who is somehow running an entire galaxy on his own. Stay with me, this is going to be worth your time. Let us put this delay in context, because context is everything here. When Ahsoka Season 1 wrapped up on Disney Plus in October 2023, fans were genuinely buzzing. Grand Admiral Thrawn was back. Ezra Bridger made it home. Ahsoka and Sabine were stranded on a completely different planet in a completely different galaxy. The story was wide open. The possibilities felt enormous. And then nothing. Now compare this to other shows people complain about. Stranger Things Season 4 came out about 3 years after Season 3. Wednesday Season 2 took over 2 years. Severance, fan favorite, critically loved, made people wait about 2 years for its second season. Those gaps felt long. People complained loudly. Ahsoka is doing all of them. It is looking at a minimum of 3.5 years between seasons, and that is only if early 2027 means January or February. If it means April, we are nudging up against 4 full years. To be precise, Ahsoka Season 1 premiered in August 2023. Season 2 drops in early 2027. That is potentially the longest gap any confirmed, already greenlit Star Wars show has ever had between seasons. Even Andor, which made fans wait about 3 years between its first and second seasons, was off the air for a shorter stretch than Ahsoka will be. The Clone Wars had massive gaps too, but that show was in a genuinely uncertain place after Disney bought Lucasfilm, so the situation was different. Ahsoka Season 2 was confirmed, it was filmed, it is in post-production, and it is still being held back by over a year. So the question is not just when, the question is why. Here is the thing nobody is really saying out loud, but everybody should understand. This delay is almost entirely a business decision. Filming on Ahsoka Season 2 started in April 2025. It reportedly wrapped in October 2025. That means by any reasonable production timeline, Disney could have released this show in 2026. They had the footage, they had the cast, they had the story. They chose not to. Why? Because Lucasfilm is in the middle of a full strategic pivot. They are pulling back from the model of churning out Star Wars television shows every single year and trying to make movies feel like events again. The centerpiece of that plan right now is The Mandalorian and Grogu, which is heading to theaters. That film is being treated as a reset, a relaunch, a statement that Star Wars still belongs on the big screen. And releasing Ahsoka Season 2 at the same time, or even close to it, would have split the audience's attention. Disney did not want that. They wanted The Mandalorian and Grogu to have the full spotlight. But there is more to it than just not competing with a movie. Ahsoka Season 2 actually takes place in the same era as The Mandalorian and Grogu. Same timeline, same political situation, same galactic conflict. There's a real chance that events in that film set up things that Ahsoka Season 2 will then pay off. If you watch the show before the movie, context might be missing. Disney needed the movie to land first so the show can properly build on it. Think of it like the Marvel Cinematic Universe approach, where the order in which you consume the content actually matters for what the story means. Star Wars is trying to do the same thing. They just did not communicate it very well to the people waiting at home. In 2019, when The Mandalorian first launched on Disney+, it started a tradition. Every single year after that, Star Wars fans got a new live-action show. The Mandalorian Season 2, The Book of Boba Fett, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Andor, The Mandalorian Season 3, Ahsoka Season 1, Skeleton Crew, Andor Season 2. That is a show every year, sometimes more than one per year for 6 straight years. That era is now over. Lucasfilm hit the brakes, and Ahsoka Season 2 is the show that got caught in the middle of that decision. Now let us talk about the person at the center of all of this, Dave Filoni. If you follow Star Wars at all, you know the name. Filoni started as an animator. He worked on Avatar, The Last Airbender, and King of the Hill before joining Lucasfilm in 2006. George Lucas himself mentored him on how to tell Star Wars stories. Filoni went on to create the Clone Wars animated series, then Rebels, then gradually moved into live action with The Mandalorian, and eventually created and showrun Ahsoka. Since then, his job title has expanded significantly. By late 2023, he was made Chief Creative Officer of Lucasfilm. Earlier in 2026, he was promoted again to president of Lucasfilm. He is now, functionally, the creative brain running the entire Star Wars franchise. That is an enormous responsibility, and it has direct consequences for Ahsoka Season 2. Here is a detail that does not get talked about enough. Filoni wrote every single episode of Ahsoka Season 2 himself. Every one. 8 episodes, all written by the same guy who is simultaneously serving as president of Lucasfilm, overseeing the production of The Mandalorian and Grogu, developing future Star Wars films and shows, and managing the broader creative direction of the franchise. There is no writer's room, no team splitting up the workload, just Filoni, one brain, one pen. Now Filoni himself described Ahsoka Season 2 as being like a war movie in terms of scale. He said the battles are bigger, the stakes are higher, and the VFX work alone has been enormous. He confirmed in a recent interview that he is deep in post-production right now, editing all episodes at once and working through visual effects in a very intensive way. His words were, and this is a quote worth noting, "Everything works as planned." Whether that is genuine confidence or Jedi-level reassurance is up for debate. But the point stands. One of the reasons this show is taking so long is because the man responsible for it is also responsible for literally everything else happening in the Star Wars universe right now. Mark Hamill, Luke Skywalker himself, recently said he cannot think of better hands to guide the franchise forward than Filoni's. That kind of trust means a lot, but trust takes time, and right now, time is what fans are spending. There is a part of this story that goes beyond strategy and schedules, and it deserves real acknowledgement. Ray Stevenson passed away in May 2023, just months before Ahsoka Season 1 even finished airing. He played Anakin Skywalker, a former Jedi who walked away from both the Jedi Order and the Sith. Not a villain in the traditional sense, not a hero either. He was something rarer in Star Wars, a character defined by genuine moral complexity and a hunger for something deeper than power. Stevenson's performance was quietly one of the best things about Season 1. His screen presence, the weight he brought to every scene, the way he made you feel like Balan had lived 1,000 years of loss before the show even started. Losing him was a real blow. And it created a real problem for production. Balan Skywalker is not a background character, he is central to the story. He was standing at the feet of the Mortis Gods statues at the end of Season 1, on the verge of discovering something fundamental about the Force. His arc cannot be dropped, written around, or quietly resolved off-screen. He has to be there. Disney spent nearly 2 years figuring out what to do. In January 2025, they announced that Rory McCann would be taking on the role. You may know McCann as Sandor the Hound Clegane from Game of Thrones. He is an actor with genuine depth and physical presence, and on paper it is a thoughtful casting choice. But recasting a character that important, played by someone who left behind such a strong impression, is not a simple process. The new actor has to learn the role. The creative team has to recalibrate how scenes are written and blocked. The emotional tone of the character has to be established all over again. That takes time, and it almost certainly pushed the production timeline back in ways that rippled through everything else. The delay tied to this part of the story is not a criticism of anyone. It is just the reality of what happens when something genuinely sad intersects with the practical demands of making a major television series. Here is something worth stepping back and understanding. Ahsoka was never supposed to have a second season in the first place. When the show was originally developed and marketed, it was positioned as a limited series. The plan was for Season 1 to tell a contained story, and then a larger crossover film, sometimes called the Mandovis movie, would bring together Din Djarin, Ahsoka, and the rest of these characters to face Thrawn in a cinematic event. That film was eventually reconceived and became The Mandalorian and Grogu, but in its original form, it was supposed to be the direct follow-up to Ahsoka Season 1's cliffhanger. The movie would resolve the stranded on Peridea situation. Thrawn's return would play out on the big screen. Then the plan changed. The movie got delayed. The story of Ahsoka and Sabine could not just sit indefinitely waiting for a film that kept moving around on the calendar. So in January 2024, Lucasfilm officially confirmed that a second season of Ahsoka was in development. That announcement itself is part of why the show is taking so long. The second season was not pre-planned from day one. It was a decision made after the fact in response to shifting circumstances. Filming did not begin until April 2025, more than a year after the season was even confirmed, and over a year and a half after Season 1 ended. The delay is not one thing. It is a stack of things. A show that was not originally designed to have a second season, a production start that came late, a tragic loss that required a major recast, a network strategy that put movies ahead of shows, and a showrunner who is also running the entire studio. Any one of those things alone would cause a delay. All of them together created a 4-year gap. Alright, let us talk about what we actually know is coming, because there is more here than just frustration about a wait. At Disney's upfront presentation, Rosario Dawson introduced a behind-the-scenes sizzle reel that those in attendance described as action-packed. Space battles, lightsaber combat, characters we know and love in what sounds like much grander, more cinematic situations than Season 1 offered. The confirmed returning cast is strong. Dawson as Ahsoka, Natasha Liu Bordizzo as Sabine Wren, Lars Mikkelsen as Grand Admiral Thrawn, Iman Esfandi as Ezra Bridger, Mary Elizabeth Winstead as Hera Syndulla, Hayden Christensen as Anakin Skywalker, and Rory McCann as the recast Baylan Skoll. There are also confirmed appearances from Admiral Akbar, the beloved Mon Calamari commander from Return of the Jedi, as well as Garazib Zeb Aurelios, a fan favorite from Star Wars Rebels who has not appeared much in live action. The show is pulling from a deep well of animated Star Wars history. Now, based on where Season 1 ended, here is how the story is most likely to develop. Thrawn is back in the main galaxy. His first move will almost certainly be reassembling the Imperial remnant. He is a tactician, not a brawler. He does not charge, he plans. And with the resources and contacts he has been quietly maintaining, expect him to start consolidating power before the New Republic even realizes how serious the threat has become. Ezra Bridger made it home, which means he will almost certainly team up with Hera and the New Republic to counter whatever Thrawn is building. But there is a wrinkle here. Filoni has strongly implied that Thrawn will not be fully defeated in Ahsoka Season 2. The larger confrontation is likely being saved for The Mandalorian and Grogu, or whatever the next major crossover project turns out to be. So this season is probably about Thrawn gaining ground while our heroes scramble to catch up. Out on Peridea, Ahsoka and Sabine have their own mission. Baylan Skoll was right on the edge of something extraordinary at the end of Season 1. Those giant Mortis Gods statues representing the father, the daughter, and the son represent one of the deepest and most mythological threads in the entire Star Wars canon, going back to the Clone Wars animated series. Baylan was drawn to them. He believes something fundamental about the Force, about its nature and its future, can be unlocked there. Ahsoka and Sabine will need to stop him, or at least understand what he is looking for, while also finding a way back to the main galaxy. And then there is Anakin Skywalker. Hayden Christensen is confirmed to be back as a Force ghost this season, and given how pivotal his appearance was in Season 1 through the World Between Worlds, his role in Season 2 is likely to be even more significant. The concept of balance in the Force and what that balance actually costs seems to be the thematic core of wherever this story is going. Filoni has been building toward this for over a decade across animation and live action. This is his mythology. This is the story he has been telling in fragments since the Clone Wars first aired in 2008. Season 2 of Ahsoka sounds like it is where a lot of those pieces finally come together. Here is the thing about all of this that I think gets lost in the frustration. Ahsoka Season 2 is going to land in 2027. That is also the year Star Wars turns 50. The original film premiered on May 25, 1977. 50 years later, Lucasfilm will re-release the original Star Wars in theaters on February 19, 2027. Star Wars Celebration will be held in Los Angeles in April 2027. And then Ahsoka Season 2 arrives on Disney Plus as the first live-action Star Wars series of that anniversary year. That is not an accident, that is a deliberate placement. Disney wants Ahsoka Season 2 to be part of a celebration of 50 years of this franchise. They want it to feel significant, not just another show in a crowded lineup. And because the show is coming after The Mandalorian and Grogu, it can now directly build on whatever that film establishes. The New Republic's political situation, Thrawn's movements, the state of the galaxy, all of that context will be fresh in viewers' minds when Ahsoka Season 2 begins. The storytelling connective tissue will actually be there in a way it might not have been if the show had rushed out in 2026. Is 4 years a long time? Yes. Is it frustrating? Absolutely. But the version of Ahsoka Season 2 that arrives in 2027 has been given the space to be bigger, more connected, and more carefully crafted than anything a rushed 2026 release would have been. Ahsoka Season 2 is coming. It is real, it is filmed, and by all accounts it is going to be the largest-scale Star Wars story told on the small screen so far. The wait has been shaped by a combination of strategy, loss, ambition, and the fundamental reality that one person is trying to tell a story that spans decades and multiple formats while also running one of the most famous entertainment franchises in history. Is the wait worth it? That is ultimately a question only the show itself can answer when it arrives. But the story that Filoni has been building since Ahsoka Tano first appeared as a young Jedi apprentice in 2008 has always been about patience, about enduring, about trusting that the path forward exists even when you cannot see it. Maybe that applies to the fans right now too. Early 2027, mark the calendar.